Welcome everyone. My name's Katherine Roberts, the senior curator here at the gallery. It's a great pleasure to introduce you Valerie Taylor, who probably needs no introduction. She's been in our hearts and on the screens for over 60 years. And we thought it was a terrific opportunity for us, in the context of this exhibition, which we'll be talking about, to have an informal chat. And then I thought we'd structure it where we talk about the book, her life and her art. Then at the end we'll talk about her as a marine conservationist. And then we'll throw it open if anyone has any questions to ask. Feel free. And we'll see how we go. You know, it might be half an hour, it might be an hour.
As long as I can get home from my 5 o'clock wine.
We've got some in the fridge here too. So, in preparing for this in-conversation, I've been reflecting on the notion of happenstance and how you never know where your life will take you. And when in 1977 I went to Heron Island with my family, and we ended up going out on a boat with Valerie and Ron. Not that she remembers, but I remember my parents saying, "Oh, Ron and Valerie," and what a thrill. So it was just a coincidence. We weren't there to learn to scuba dive, but there to snorkel and to appreciate that incredible marine environment in the Great Barrier Reef. And so just over a year ago, Valerie and I were introduced up at North Head at the Community Open Day as part of our big North Head project at Christmas year before last, you may remember. And that led to a conversation and then to us collaborating and realising this exhibition project. So I thought, while we're here surrounded by Melody the Mermaid, the adventures in the kingdoms of the sea, that so much is known about your adventures under the sea. And so I thought, well, let's talk about the book. What was the inspiration for this project and how did it come about?
Well, I've always been a painter. It was my only challenge. I'm certainly not an academic. And I was diving off a vessel called Curator in Papua New Guinea. And I was sitting in the saloon painting. I was painting a mermaid. And the crew members, there was about 6 locals, gathered around the window and they were staring and they wouldn't go away. And I just thought, what's this? And so I went out and said, "What are you looking at?" And the eldest one said, "Oh, Mummy, you've seen the mermaids, haven't you?" I said, "Yes, I've seen them in my mind." He said, No, we know where they are." He said, "They're down deep. They used to be shallow and they used to be our friends. But now, outboard motors and dim-dims," that's what they call us, dim-dims, have frightened them into deep water. But you go down there, don't you? You see them. And I said, "Well, I only see them in my mind." And I was painting a mermaid with a lionfish. And the lionfish was correctly drawn. There's one around here somewhere. And this conversation went on and on. And then the next day, the local school children came out with the teacher. And the teacher had brought them to the Toledo to speak to the lady who had actually seen the mermaids. And I said to the school teacher, "You know that there are no mermaids." He said, "Mrs. Taylor, I know there are." I said, "Goodness, this is unusual." So then I started to gather stories told by their grandparents about the mermaids. And my first mermaid drawing was done to one of the stories. A long, long time ago, the cook's grandfather was the fisherman for the village. I was in the Trobriand Islands at Currawina village, And he said, my grandfather one day, he went out fishing at night, he caught nothing, and he was going to be shamed by coming back with no food for the village. And then he tried one last time, and he pulled up a mermaid. And he said, I have to take you back. She said, if you take me back, I will die. I only can live in the ocean. He said, but I will be shamed if I go back empty-handed. She said, I will give you a gift to take back. And it's a gift for your first daughter. And he said, what is it? And she said, it's my name. My name is Melanina, and that is the name of your first daughter. Went back and he had his daughter, told the story. The girl was called Melanina. The cook's mother, that name went right through the village. Her name was Melanina. And that's how I started painting mermaids. Before that, I painted fish, sharks, all sorts of scenery, flowers, trees. And then I started doing the mermaids, and it was easy for me because I understood the underwater world. A lot of the animals in the paintings are very correctly, classically drawn, but most of it is fantasy because I did the book for small children. But the story that goes with the paintings is basically a true story. They do have the coral sea current. It comes in November, and they do have king tides. They come in November, and they wash a lot of marine animals from the barrier reef out into the coral sea, and that's why in summer you can see turtles off the beach just down here, or along the coast, not a lot, but you bump into them occasionally. And you can see lionfish and small angelfish that generally die in the winter when it gets cold. And so I used that, I made that the story, and part of the story, the wicked prince wants to marry Melody because she's so beautiful. And he puts her inside a Medusa, which is the jellyfish that causes all the trouble. We call it the box jellyfish. And she can't get out. But what the wicked prince doesn't know is that jellyfish can't sting seahorse. And her best friend is called Hippo, because the scientific name of a seahorse is hippocampus. And Hippo came and rescued her. That's the sort of story I tell. There's little factual things all through. But I'm really a diver. I have spent a good part of my life working in the water with my husband. We make movies. We started off just doing documentaries. We started off with movie tone news, actually, black and white. The reason we got into sharks, and you're probably all wondering about that, was that they would sell. When we started, there was no one else. We were just two Australians with an old hand-wound Bollocks camera, and Ron made a housing for it. And we were shooting 16mm. Movie Tone would pay us, brace yourself for this, £24 an episode. I think the basic wage was about £9 a week. And that sets us off every weekend looking for sharks. They wouldn't buy minnows or coral polyps or guppies. They wanted big, dangerous marine creatures. And if I could be down there with my long blonde hair, in a bikini, and sold every time. And that's how we got into sharks, which eventually we got into colour film, then we got into making documentaries, and then we picked up to do underwater sequences for films. Then we started our own, well, it wasn't ours, there were 4 of us, feature film called Blue Water White Death, which is still available today and did very well. And Blue Water White Death put Ron and I on the world stage, and so we slipped into working for Hollywood. And working for Hollywood was pretty good fun at times.
Steven Spielberg came knocking.
Yeah, well, it was Richard Zanuck and David Brown sent Ron and I the galley proof of a book called Jaws, written by a guy called Peter Benchley. And they asked us if we thought it would make a good movie. And this is before computers or anything, and it was all handwriting backwards and forwards. And we both read it and we said yes. So they bought the rights for I think it was $100, something like that. And they had a discussion and they decided they'd get the live shark footage first. And that's where we came into it. We were at that time, other than Peter Gimbel and Stan Waterman, the only people in the world who filmed live white sharks underwater. And that's how we got to work on Jaws. And although we couldn't work in America, at Martha's Vineyard, they took us across anyway. So we got to know the actors and the director. Steven Spielberg was his second film. He was like a little boy. He looked so young. And we just went on from there, movie after movie. And we were very lucky because my husband's a genius. Well, he was a genius. And he could make underwater housings for the big 35mm Technoscope cameras out of plexiglass. And they were light. And he could swim fast with them. Whereas the professional ones were huge boxes made out of metal, which took 2 men to carry. Once in the water, of course, they were neutral buoyancy, the same. They wouldn't float, they wouldn't sink. Neutral buoyancy means you just stay in one place, which is rather nice if you know how to do it. That's the story of where we went. I left school on my 15th birthday, and something that I only just realised just a month ago. I'm the subject of a book at the moment. I have written 7 books, but this is a book someone else is writing, basically, from my diaries. And I said, I left school when I was 15, and I could do anything I wanted. She said, weren't you lucky? You just walked out the door and you could do and be whatever you wanted. And I've never thought of that. I didn't have to go and study to be a nurse or a doctor or an accountant or anything. I was free. And I got sacked from my first 2 jobs. Lasted in 1 2 weeks and 1 was 3 weeks. Because I wasn't good with money. And we were living in New Zealand at the time. I'm an Australian, born in Sydney in Crown Street. And I went and applied for a job at the New Zealand Film Unit at Miramar, Wellington. And I got a job doing animation. And that was just suited for me. I was just an animator. I understood. And even if you look at the drawings today, they're outlines coloured in. And when I came to Australia, we came back after the war, which makes me a lot older, doesn't it? After the war, I got a job. I got sacked for the first 2 jobs again. Then I got one, work drawing comic strips and children's pages for something I could do. Have I talked long enough or have I talked too long?
I just haven't interjected because it's so beautiful to hear the story.
I just don't want to bore everybody to death. The reason I was so badly educated, when I was 12 I got infantile paralysis, polio, the last world plague. And afterwards then the Dr. Salk invented the Salk vaccine, and of course that stopped it. And if any of you here have daughters who will not have their children vaccinated, for goodness sake, tell them to do it. The most incredibly painful, distressing, horrible disease. I was taken at 12 along with many other children, most of whom died, and put into total isolation, men, women and children, all together in one big room, because we were very contagious and the epidemic was raging. And I was very fortunate in a way because I was in New Zealand at the time. If I'd been in Australia, it would have been different. In New Zealand, in Wellington Hospital, there was a doctor from America, and he had worked in the Sister Kenny clinics in America. Sister Kenny was an Australian nursing sister, and she worked out a way to treat polio, to treat people, but she wasn't a doctor, and they wouldn't accept her treatment here. So she went to America, where she became famous. They made a feature film called The Sister Kenny Story. And I was fortunate. I was in New Zealand, this doctor was here, who worked in a Sister Kenny clinic. And after 3 weeks, they started the treatment. And after 9 weeks, I could walk enough to be allowed to go home. And after 2 years, I didn't have to go back for any more treatment. But it made a big hole in my education. Diving came naturally. I never learned to swim. I guess that's why I was such a good diver. Do a bit of dog paddle, a bit of breaststroke. I've never done a dive course, but why should I? I was diving long before they ever invented a dive course. I was about to start and go to school to learn to do something I could do very well. And it gave, I joined I used to be a spearfisher, and I was good at it. I was good at it because my father, we were sent to New Zealand to open a battery factory called Exide, and then war broke out and we were stuck. We were still there. He'd opened the factory, and my father died young and had, many times he got lead poisoning. We didn't have lead. They sent us to a country that had no lead. And my father and I, on bicycles, because there wasn't no petrol, this is the beginning of the war, we'd go from house to house on our bicycles asking for lead. And a lot of the lead was little lead soldiers, painted. Little Scottish soldiers, British soldiers, in their little uniforms, probably all hand-painted. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of little lead soldiers and hundreds and hundreds of sinkers. And Dad would boil it all down, and the separators in the battery, they had to be soaked in lead. That was something that happened when I was very young, and there are people in the audience right now who will remember those little soldiers, I'm sure. Yeah. I learned a lot of things. I learned how to shoot a gun because we'd go and get rabbits, and food was always a problem. It was easy in the summer because we had victory gardens, but winters were very cold in Lower, and the gardens didn't do well. I had a happy childhood. There was no plastic. Never knew about plastic. We could live very well without plastic. And I have no complaints about my childhood at all. I actually think I was fortunate. Everything worked out well. I think I'm fortunate. I've had a fortunate life. I've had the best life of anybody I've ever known. That's the truth. And I'm still having it. Can you believe it? I'm still having it. And they're now making a movie about my life. And I've got a ghostwriter. I'd like to write my own book, which is hard to write about yourself. I've got this lovely, good-looking guy coming around. It's okay. film is by a company called Wild Bear, and the producer is Tina Dalton, and you might remember her from television. I think it was Getaway. She was the anchor woman. And they don't have to do a lot of work because I've been on camera for 60 years. What they're doing is remastering the old film and making it really pristine and beautiful. It's coming up very well. And though in the first week in June we go to Fiji, the director seems very keen on this puzzle, but I'll go. And to work with bull sharks. We've done a lot of work with bull sharks. They're a nasty shark, I can assure you. And it's very hard to work with them. Of all the shark species we have struggled to work with, they have been the most difficult. Usually you can make friends with the shark by giving it a bit of food and hanging in there, looking it in the eye, but not the bull. And we do have a lot of them off our coast. There'll be about 30 or 40 bull sharks. There'll be 7 species of shark altogether in this place we're going, because in Fiji and many of the islands, Papua New Guinea, the reefs all belong to a village. And this village believes that their ancestors are sharks, and when they die, they become a shark. So they don't kill any. And it's pretty hard to find in this day and age. We used to always see sharks off the coast here. They just pass, they took no notice. I haven't seen a dangerous shark for years. The little duskies down there off the coast in off Shelley, Cabbage Tree Bay, I think they call it. They're wonderful. But they are a carcarina. They do belong to the family of dangerous sharks. But they're not going to touch anybody. There's no reason. Nobody's giving them a reason to do anything. Besides, we're much bigger than they are. They're only little guys. The bull sharks that I work with are as big as great whites. And I think I like a great white better. They have a bad reputation, and in a way I feel a little bit responsible because of Jaws. It was causing so much conflict in America about gung-ho guys. Here I am. I've just killed a shark, and there's some poor wretched shark on his line with cuts all over it, and it wasn't a shark that had ever hurt anybody. So Universal sent Ron and I all around America. We did every talk show in America, telling people not to be afraid. And Ron's statement would always be, you don't go to New York and expect to see King Kong on the top of the Empire State Building. So why do you expect to see Jaws when you go to the beach?
It's fictional.
It's fictional. It was a fictitious story. I think I've yapped enough. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Thank you so much, Valerie. It's absolutely fascinating just listening to you speak, and I can't wait to read the book.
Oh,
I had a question about the book, if I may. I wondered, did it take you very long to write and illustrate it? I can't wait to start reading it. It looks fabulous.
the question is, did it take me very long to read it, to write and illustrate the book? I wrote it quickly and changed it with the story many times. The illustrations took me about a year because they're not even all here, most of them here. It was very fine work. I have horrible arthritis in my hands now. I can still draw and paint, but not as finely as I did then.
Yes, they're absolutely exquisite, the fineness, and the colours are so just beautiful.
I just had one little paint. Winsor and Newton. It's quite, I enjoy doing it. And I still do paint mermaids, but I don't actually paint them. I still do paint them sometimes, but I paint lady mermaids, bosoms and generally. Yes?
When you wrote the book, did you have a particular age for the children that you were writing for?
I was asked if I had the particular age in mind. Yes, I did. I did because I had a niece and she loved mermaids. And I really didn't paint it for her. I just painted it for children. All the other books I've done, bar one, were for adults. I did a book on the Barrier Reef for children, but that was photography, not painting. Any other question? Yes?
How did you meet Ron? How did you meet Ron?
Oh, I was spearfishing. I was the New South Wales ladies champion, and he was the New South Wales men's champion. And then we became the Australian champions. He won 4 championships, I won 3. Then he became the world champion, which no Australian has ever come anywhere near it. He could drop down 100 feet, 120 feet, and hold his breath for 2 minutes while he stalked a fish. He could actually hold his breath for about 11 minutes if he wanted to, but not while he was swimming, carrying on to depth. One day at Maroochydore, the Australian Spearfishing Championships was in the 60s. And there was an island offshore somewhere with a lovely reef. And that's where we were spearing for 3 days. And at the end of it, Ron looked at all those beautiful fish and he said, "You know what we've done to that reef? We've taken all the good fish off it, all the big fish. We have destroyed the web of life on that beautiful reef." And although we both had won the championship, either women's and either men, he said, "We're never going to do this again, Valerie." And I said, "I agree." We walked away. At the top of the game, we walked away. And became conservationists because there were no children or young people in Australia who will ever know how absolutely phenomenal the marine world of our coast was. They'll never know what it's like to walk off the beach and be surrounded by fish. Now they'll walk off the beach and they're lucky if they see a fish. They'll never know what it's like to swim out to Pundina, to a bobby, and see the rainbow sharks circling. I might add, we thought they would kill us. The media had a lot to do with that. It's gone. However, it's still wonderful. I only look at it and think, oh, this is sad, because I know what it was like. A young child today going into the water who has never known how absolutely fantastic it is, they will look and see what man has done to our marine environment. And I guess it is. But I've been working hard. It's an uphill battle. No matter what you do, what you keep protected, it's never enough. It's a battle with the fishermen and the game fishermen who hate me passionately. And only 6%, tiny 6% of the oceans around Australia, think how much we have, are protected. The word marine park means nothing. You do whatever you like in a marine park. It has to be a sanctuary zone or a national marine park. Last year, the Australian Spearfishing Championships were held in the marine park on the Barrier Reef. That's how much it means. Nothing at all. But it makes people think it's all protected, and it's not. And that's one of my arguments. I have a couple of politicians who are 100% on my side, but it's very hard to get anything protected. As an individual, not belonging to a group, not asking anybody for money, I have had the Australian sea lions protected, the potato cod, Ephenephalus sicula, protected, the grey nose protected, and they have habitats on it. And it's no good protecting the tiger if you don't protect the jungle. It's got nowhere to live. I've had areas made protected, and there's a few other things I've worked on. Oh, we did film a documentary called Nursery of the Giants on whales, and we got them protected in Australia using that documentary. There's a simple trick to it. You don't go around asking for money and petitioning politicians. You see what's going to happen and what is happening that you don't like. You get good imagery. That was easy. My husband was a cinematographer. Good imagery. You get a good story. You go to television. They'll never knock you back. And you never lie. Never, ever lie. Because the opposition will, and you've got them. And I don't hesitate a second to say to somebody, some fisherman who's saying, I'm going to go broke and you're taking food out of the mouths of my children. Gee, I've heard that a lot. And I was there at that point, and there were hundreds of breaker sharks. And I said, oh, when were you there? He said, oh, July. And I know there's no breaker sharks at that point in July. They're not stupid, they go north for the matter. And also, at Bass Point, there are 100 feet or more down. I said, you must have been a good freediver. He said, no, I saw them from the surface. And I said, you're just a liar. And I said, it on television. And he said, you calling me a liar? I said, because you are, yeah. I can be quite horrible. But it distresses me that in spite of all my successes, that we're still going backwards, not just in the ocean, but on land as well. Fracking is a horrible thing. Deforestation is a terrible thing. And I'm always getting from these wildlife people wanting money to go and save the koala and save the this and save the that. And the only way you can do it is to buy the forest and never let it burn. These bushfires take away more wild animals and more of our precious, beautiful little creatures than you could ever imagine. Some group up in Queensland decided, I think they were there originally, to sell acres of the Daintree. Have you heard of the Daintree? Big forest in Queensland, rainforest. The last habitat of the cassowary in Australia. So I bought 3 acres. It wasn't very expensive. I forgot, maybe $600 an acre. And I got a nice certificate, very colourful, and I gave them to my nephews. They were not impressed because it was a Christmas present. But one day they will be impressed. One of them said, now can I go and build a house on it? I said, no. I bought it for you. You have the certificate, but you can go there whenever you want. It's a protected area, but you can go there whenever you want. But it actually belongs to the national parks. And the way I see it, that's the only way you can get these things done. Any more questions, by the way? I've got to shut up. Yes?
I read that Katherine Ron, he was the first person to photograph sharks not being enclosed in a cage?
They keep saying that. Well, we never thought about cages. Even when he did the first Great White film, which was called Hunt for the Great White Shark, he didn't have a cage. But he didn't get in the water and swim with it either. He had a rope around his ankle and he hung off the tuna's fishing platform on a fishing boat and filmed them from there. And there was a game fisherman called Alf Dean who was catching them. He caught 5. And Ron was hanging over the bank filming them. And so we certainly didn't have a cage. And of course when we did Jaws, they wanted a lot of footage with no cage. But there was always a cage under him or to his back. The great white shark can be very unpredictable. I've only ever in my life been in the water on 3 occasions with a great white and no cage. Probably a lot more than that I don't know about. But where it's been, in front of me. Because they don't swim around looking for people to eat. We're not their natural prey. Just this summer, January, January it was, I was at Seal Rock standing at the lighthouse there. And there was a diver, not a diver, a board rider. And I was with a group of people and I could see a great white coming. I said, oh, look, it was a great white. And everybody's yelling at this board rider. And they had no idea he was sitting on his board waiting for a wave. They swam past him, didn't even look, just kept going. You know why? He did nothing to attract its attention. Nothing. Yet he was on board, it was just something floating. There was no reason for that shark to look at him. A few times I've had difficulties with sharks. I swim at them screaming and yelling, threatening death to them. They know, they pick up the vibration. I actually like them a lot, sharks. I like eels. Underwater marine animals are very similar to land animals. You could almost say for every land animal there is the equivalent in the marine world. Every insect, there's the equivalent. Every bird. So Peter Scott called butterfly fish the birds of the sea. And he was a real bird man. We did a lot of diving together. Like I said, I've had a great life. Have I bored you enough?
Last question. Is there any hope for the oceans in Australia, do you think, and the marine life?
Is there any hope for the oceans in Australia and the marine life? There's more hope in Australia than in most other countries. The devastation is horrific. In 1974, I crossed the Pacific, island hopping, diving all the way, and it was magic. Late last year, I did the same thing. That was sad. Little islands. Nobody even lived on them, just staircase with a few coconut palms that had white beaches, beautiful reefs. You couldn't see the beaches for plastic. I have a hatred of plastic. It is awful to see what it can do. Go down on a coral reef and the corals all caught up in plastic and you can't pull it off, it's hard. You can't pull it off without breaking the coral. Okay, I don't think there's any hope if we continue at the rate we're going. There, that's what I'm saying. And I've seen a lot more than anybody else in this country.
What about the film a year and a half ago that came out, Blue, which talked about overfishing and pollution?
Yes.
If that's made any impact?
It's made a huge impact. Actually, in 2 weeks, not this weekend, not next week, the weekend after, I'll be with Blue at the Festival of the Sea in Bondi. It made a huge impact, but nowhere near enough. The things they didn't get were these great islands of plastic floating in the ocean, mixed up with flops and jets. And they didn't film beaches where you couldn't see the sand for plastic. The worst countries for this type of pollution are Asia. In Indonesia, everything is thrown into the sea. Everything. It's scary. I'd go further and further afield, looking for clean water, no garbage on the bottom. We are destroying the planet that supports us. It's not progress, it's stupidity. Yes?
No, the impact did it have when you pulled out of spearfishing at such a high level with other spearfishing?
What do you say?
What impact did it have when you pulled out of spearfishing to the other spearfishers at that time?
Sorry, I'm a bit deaf. Most divers go deaf, you know. It's pressure. I wasn't hearing my left ear completely from a reverse block. Made us very unpopular, not because we pulled out, but because we suddenly went into conservation. I have nothing against spearing a fish. It's a nicer way to get a fish than on a line. You go down and spear it, kill a spot, kill it, take it home and eat it. The spearfishing competitions I am against because it's kill, 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 kill. And they say we're only allowed to weigh in one of each species. True. But if you go out to see it, let's say you see a brook, got the brook. See a bigger brook, get rid of that one, get the bigger brook. So in a way it's very destructive. Any other questions?
Maybe one other comment I've seen you talk about, researching is the krill harvesting.
Oh, yes, that's krill. It's become the latest big harvesting. The Russians have always, to a certain extent, not always, but for many years, harvested krill for chicken feed and pig feed and things like that. But now the Norwegians have started, the Chinese are doing it. Every animal and bird in Antarctica relies directly or indirectly on krill. Every single one. I'm not sure, I've never studied krill, but I looked this up on the computer and it said that krill lives at 2 degrees of temperature in very deep water. They come to the surface to breed. And that's what's been harvested. What happens when you harvest the breeding aggregations? Just imagine if the farmer killed all his cows when they were pregnant, you wouldn't get me next year. The whales feed on it. The penguins feed on it. The whales don't have to feed on it on the surface because they go deep. According to what I read, from egg to krill in Antarctica takes 7 years. So you can't keep taking and expect there to be more krill forever after. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on krill. But so it's basically what I have. I went to one lecture and it's what I read. But it scares me. I like whales. I like elephant seals. They're lovely, sort of funny fellas. I like all these creatures. I love penguins. They're so cute. And they're all going to be endangered. So the Russians and the Norwegians and the Chinese and probably now the Chileans, I think, are getting into it. Harvesting the krill to feed animals. The thing about krill is they're a sort of shrimp. I've got photographs of them. But once you take them out of the really cold water, they disintegrate. They're not good for us to eat. We can't eat them. They just sort of disintegrate. They're not good for that. They have to be processed on the boat when they come out, even to be good enough to go into chicken food. That's as much as I know about krill. I've only seen it once, and it was on an iceberg. I've been to Antarctica several times. Any more questions?
I just wanted to finally bring it back to home, back to Manly really, where the council is doing a heritage conservation study or activation study on this whole West Esplanade region. We had a community consultation evening here on Wednesday night. There's another one this week. And just the contradictions I find where you have one group of people trying to preserve the seagrasses and the little, weedy sea dragons or seahorses that used to live around here, and yet people are allowed to throw over an anchor and rip up the seagrass, destroy the habitat. And then another thing which was in Pittwater Life this month was about this, what effects do seismic tests have? And off the coast where there is, there's a lease, you probably knew, for potential mining, from Newcastle down to Manly, and between 5 and 20 kilometres offshore. So, but then the testing that they have to do you know much about seismic testing and the effects it has on marine creatures?
I can't say about marine creatures, I know the effect it has on me. I didn't even know where it was happening. I could just hear it and feel it. Sound underwater is, it goes through the water so fast, so dense. And like in World War II, when the ship went down and all the sailors from the water, the Japanese had just dropped bombs that exploded into the water and killed them. Your lungs, the air spaces in your body fracture. And fish do have air spaces, especially, say, the great shark, which it controls. And I don't know about this size. I don't know why they have to do it. I don't think it's necessary. But there are so many things that are not necessary that are happening continuously. It's not necessary to frack for gas for some other country. It's all to do with the hip pocket. Not making it a better country. It's not making Australians richer. They're trying to pretend it is. It's just greed. Greed and apathy. That's the problem. The sea's already in trouble. The seismic testing is going to cause havoc with the cetaceans, the whales and the dolphins and things. They're all air breathers. It's going to cause havoc with the fish. And I don't know if any fishermen here, but when you pull a fish up from very deep water, its eyes pop out and sort of starts to explode because it doesn't have time to decompress. This is what happens. I've seen what happens with the bombing in Indonesia. They've destroyed thousands of kilometres of beautiful coral reef and all the animals that live on it with bombs. And it's an easy way of fishing. You throw a bomb in the water, there's an explosion, some of the fish float up, you gather them, most of them die, fly on the bottom, you don't get them. It's a terrible thing, and they're destroying their reefs. Fortunately, and this has nothing to do with the Indonesians themselves, it's to do with the World Wildlife Fund and the Nature Conservancy. Huge areas now of Indonesian waters are protected. It's interesting, the places they could get protected was places where people didn't live.
Well, thank you very much, Valerie, for sharing your knowledge of the world and of life and life under the water. And thanks everyone for participating and being so interested. project.
And I want to thank you all for coming. A lot more people came than I thought would. Really. I'm impressed. Yeah.
Where can we buy the book? Is it for sale here?
Yes.
And if you buy the book here, if someone gives me a pen, I'll sign it for you.